I pulled up to the house 15 minutes late, the bottle of decent Cabernet in my hand, feeling less like a host gift and more like a necessary psychological buffer. The driveway was, of course, already packed. Mom's ancient Honda CR-V, Dad's Ford F-150 that I helped pay off last year, and Melanie's shiny, newish Audi A3, the one she swore was essential for brand image and that I had co-signed the loan for 18 months ago. I parked on the street and checked my reflection. 31 years old and I looked 45. 7 straight days pushing 14-hour shifts, optimizing data models for the startup will do that to you. The familiar, heavy smell of Dad's famous slow-cooked pork shoulder hit me the moment I pushed open the front door. Sunday dinner at the Hayes home in suburban Chicago, a ritual as predictable as Dad's rants about tax hikes and Mom's pointed questions about why a nice girl like me was still single. "Evie, you're late, sweetheart." Mom, Carol, age 62, called out from the kitchen. She wiped her hands on her apron and hurried over for a quick peck on the cheek. She's tiny, my mom, but she can still command a room with those dramatic sighs. Her back has been acting up lately, a convenient ailment that usually coincides with expensive medical bills I usually end up covering. "Sorry, Mom, the data visualization models were giving us fits. Q3 reporting is brutal." I handed her the wine. "Oh, save the boring data analyst talk, honey. Melanie has been glued to her phone all night. Her new SoulSync wellness platform is about to hit the big time with some major venture capitalists. It's all very exciting." Of course it is. Everything Melanie, age 27, touches is about to hit the big time. Her past 3 failed apps, the meal prep planner, the gratitude journal, the anxiety tracker, were all about to hit the big time, too. I just sipped the warm air and nodded. Dad, Richard, age 65, looked up from his iPad, reading some article about the Chicago housing market. "Evie, did you see they're building high-rises down on Lincoln? It's gonna ruin property values around here." "Hi to you too, Dad." I kissed the top of his thinning gray head. The dining room table was set with the good china, the kind Mom only pulls out for Christmas and the occasional family wedding. A Sunday night special occasion? That tightened a knot in my stomach. Melanie bounced in from the living room, phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. "Evie, you won't believe the numbers I'm seeing. Trevor from the incubator just said the valuation is 8 figures. This is it." She gave me a distracted, one-armed hug, her focus already back to the glowing screen. "Dinner, everyone?" Mom interrupted, carrying in the massive pork shoulder. "Richard, put that down. Melanie, phone away at the table. You know the rules." Dad folded his iPad neatly, exactly the way he's done everything for the last 30 decades. Melanie sighed dramatically, but tucked the phone into her designer jeans pocket, her fingers twitching. We settled into our spots. Dad at the head, Mom at the foot, and Melanie and I facing each other. The routine was almost comforting. Almost. "So, Evie, how's the office really?" Dad asked, passing the green beans. Before I could answer, Melanie's phone vibrated like a hive of angry bees against her thigh. She pulled it out, eyes wide. "Oh my God, I have to take this. It's too important. It's my VC contact." She was gone before the beans made it around the table. Mom beamed after her. "That girl is going places. Those Silicon Valley people just see her potential." Potential that I've financed for 7 years, I thought, draining my wine glass a little too quickly. "The reports are solid," I managed, returning to Dad's question. "We're up 15% year over year, which means we'll finally be able to—" Clink, clink, clink. The sound of Dad tapping his fork against his water glass cut me off. I looked up. His expression was heavier than usual, almost solemn. Melanie slipped back into her chair, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom and I have an announcement," Dad began. Something cold and metallic dropped into my stomach. I carefully placed my own fork down. "We've decided to sell the house." The words hung in the air, thick and impossible. The house where I scraped my knees. The house where I spent $14,000 of my savings fixing a collapsed sewer line 2 years ago. The house I thought was their retirement anchor. But why? I asked, the question sounding hollow. I thought you loved this place. Mom reached across the table for Dad's hand. We did, honey, but plans change. She forced a smile. And we've decided to give the full equity, about $250,000 after the mortgage is paid off, to Melanie. This will secure her initial funding round. My brain stalled. $250,000 to Melanie for another app. I thought about the stack of invoices in my apartment. Mom's emergency appendectomy, $12,000. Dad's new hardware store inventory after the fire, $25,000. Melanie's countless coding boot camps and networking trips, $33,000 and counting. I tallied it all up instantly. $70,000 of my life, my down payment, my future, gone over 7 years of being the good daughter, the reliable provider. What about me? I heard myself whisper. My wine glass slipped, shattering on the hardwood floor. The red wine spread across the oak like a stain, an ugly, sprawling Rorschach test of my life. I put everything into this family, I continued, ignoring the glass crunching under my shoes. I turned down that Denver offer, $40,000 more a year, because you said you needed me close by. Mom's face pinched in annoyance. Oh, Evie, you're stable. You have a great job. Melanie needs this chance. She needs a leg up. A leg up, I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. I'm renting the same cramped apartment I signed the lease on 7 years ago. Every time I save enough for a deposit, there's an emergency. A family emergency. Dad's voice went flat and hard, the tone of final authority. Your sister deserves this opportunity, Evelyn. This app could be worth millions. You should be happy for her. I looked at Melanie, but she was already staring intently at her phone, avoiding eye contact. Not a flicker of shame, not a hint of gratitude, just entitlement. I need air. I pushed back from the table, not caring about the broken glass. Evie, don't be dramatic. Your pork shoulder is getting cold, Mom called after me. I stood on the cool porch, hands shaking, and texted Sarah Chen, my friend since college, and the only person who'd heard this saga one disastrous chapter at a time. Coffee tomorrow, 7 a.m. Emergency. The 3 dots appeared instantly. Done. Usual spot. Don't sleep on this, Evie. Through the window, I watched them. Dad, gesturing with his fork, Mom cutting a piece of meat, Melanie nodding and then giggling at something on her phone. They were already continuing dinner without the inconvenient older daughter. Family comes first, I'd always believed. But as I watched them, I realized I hadn't been family for a long time. I was just the resource. The next morning, Sarah, a loan officer at Chicago Metro Credit Union, was waiting, looking concerned. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, sliding my caramel latte toward me. The family dinner was a disaster. They're selling the house and giving everything to Melanie. I told her the $250,000 figure, the Denver job I forfeited, the years of quiet sacrifice. Sarah's brow furrowed. She looked around the busy coffee shop before leaning in close. Evie, before you go any further, I saw something last week at work that I probably shouldn't mention, but you're my friend. There's a new HELOC, home equity line of credit, lien on your parents' property. $85,000, filed 3 weeks ago with Midwest Financial. The coffee turned to ash in my mouth. $85,000? But they said they were selling the house to fund Melanie. Where did that money go? Sarah shifted uncomfortably. That's what made me look. I've seen your dad's signature hundreds of times on escrow documents. The one on the HELOC application, it looked off. Actually, both signatures looked off. They looked like hurried forgeries. Bank fraud. A felony. My sister, and a sudden, urgent need to sell the family home to cover the financial gap. I stood up, leaving the latte untouched. I have to go. That night, alone in my silent apartment, I logged into the family's financial portal. 7 years ago, I'd been added to their accounts, just in case. Mom needed quick access to funds while she was recovering from surgery. Another temporary measure that became permanent. I pulled Dad's credit report. There it was. Midwest Financial. $85,000 HELOC, fully drawn. Opened 22 days prior. I used a contact from my financial advisor's office to expedite getting the actual loan documents. They hit my inbox at 11:47 p.m. I printed everything. The signatures were crude caricatures. Dad's was missing the characteristic flourish he always made on the R. Mom's was too neat, too rounded. I knew that handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards, notes, and countless loan applications for Melanie's failed ventures. I printed years of my own bank statements, highlighting the checks written. $12K, $25K, $33K. The $70,000 of my life quantified in green markers. I created a new desktop folder. Project Reckoning. At 1:30 a.m., Sarah texted me. "Did you find anything?" I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Can you officially testify about the signature discrepancies if it comes to that? I waited for what felt like an hour. Professionally, no. As your friend, yes. Absolutely. The next afternoon, I called my college roommate in Denver. "Is that senior data architect position still open at your firm?" I asked, no pleasantries exchanged. "Evie? Yeah, they're still desperate. Finally ready to escape the Chicago vortex?" "Not yet," I said. "First, I need to clean up my accounts." My financial advisor confirmed the obvious. These aren't authentic. If you're asking professionally, I'd advise reporting this fraud immediately. If you're asking as a friend, I'd say whoever did this is betting on your family loyalty to cover their ass. I stared at the pile of evidence. 7 years of financial statements flowing one way. The money wasn't the point anymore. It was the betrayal. They expected me to keep paying, to keep sacrificing, and now to cover up a felony. But families deserve one chance. Even families like mine. I texted all 3 of them. Emergency family meeting. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., non-negotiable. Bring the HELOC documents. When I walked into the house the next evening, they were already sitting at the dining room table, pretending to be nonchalant. Dad irritated, Mom worried, Melanie already scrolling. None of them noticed the heavy manila folder tucked under my arm. I placed it on the table and opened it methodically, spreading the credit report, the loan document, and the signature comparisons like cards in a high-stakes poker game. "Melanie," I said, my voice steady, professional. "Explain this. The $85,000 HELOC from Midwest Financial." Melanie's phone clattered to the floor. Mom picked up the loan document, confusion giving way to dawning horror. "Melanie, what is this? This isn't the VC funding." Melanie shrank into her seat, cornered. "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." I cut in. "Bank fraud. A felony." Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Melanie dissolved into tears. "I needed bridge funding. The investors were hesitating. I just needed a few weeks." Dad moved from shock to blinding panic. He looked at Mom, then back to me. The silent exchange said, "Contain the damage. She'll fix it." "I'm calling the bank's fraud department right now," reaching for my phone. Dad lunged across the table. "You will not send your sister to prison. We are a family. We will fix this. You are forbidden from calling anyone." I looked at them. Dad blocking my exit, Mom weeping theatrically, Melanie looking up through her fingers. The victim complex perfected over decades. "I will not pay for her crime," I said, walking past my father, "and I won't be part of your cover-up." The next morning, at 6:42 a.m., before the sun was even fully up, the inevitable happened. Melanie Hayes posted a tearful selfie on Facebook, mascara smudged, looking devastatingly wronged. 3 paragraphs followed. A masterpiece of manipulative narcissism. "My heart is broken today." When family betrays you, it's the worst wound. My sister Evie has always been so jealous of my potential and my dreams. Now she's actively sabotaging the biggest opportunity of my life, my wellness platform, because she just can't stand to see me succeed where she played it safe. She's abandoning mom and dad when they need support the most, all because of a simple misunderstanding over a small financial arrangement. We've always been a family, but Evie is choosing bitterness and spite. Pray for us as we navigate this difficult time. Family should lift each other up, not tear each other apart. I scrolled through the immediate stream of comments. Cousin Sandra, how could you, Evie? Your poor parents. Uncle Tom, Richard is devastated. Call him. Mrs. Davis, neighbor. I always knew Evie was the cold one, but this is shocking. I silenced the phone. The strange, cold calm returned. They had just given me permission to stop playing nice. The gloves were officially off. The immediate fallout from Melanie's performative victim post was exactly what she'd calculated, a tidal wave of manufactured outrage aimed squarely at me. My phone vibrated nonstop, a chorus of notifications and hostile messages from extended family members who only surface when there's drama or money involved. Cousin Sandra, who I hadn't seen since she borrowed $50 in college, texted, "How could you do this to your own sister? Your father is heartbroken." Uncle Tom left a voicemail laced with thinly veiled disgust. "Evie, you need to call your mother immediately. You're tearing the family apart over a little financial issue." Aunt Martha's message was the most cutting. "I always knew you were too cold, but threatening to destroy your sister's career over a misunderstanding? Shameful." I silenced the phone, slid it into my purse, and walked into my office. The strange calm that had descended on me the night before solidified into a protective shell. My hands were steady, my pulse normal. For years, every family crisis sent me into a spiral of anxiety. Now, facing a full-scale social media attack and a felony cover-up, I felt oddly focused. At my desk, I opened my laptop and created a new folder, moving all the existing evidence, the HELOG documents, the signature comparisons, my own bank statements, into meticulously labeled subfolders. I added a new one, social media attacks and messaging. I screenshotted every comment, every text, every voicemail transcription. When an anonymous account started posting family betrayer under my professional LinkedIn posts about data visualization, I documented those too, timestamping the evidence. Each piece of data I collected, categorized, and filed brought me one step closer to emotional neutrality. This wasn't personal. It was a case study in fraud and manipulation. During my lunch break, my email pinged. The sender, Richard Hayes. The subject, supporting Melanie's business venture. I wasn't in the to field. I was blind copied, BCC'd. A glaring oversight that proved my father was actively hiding his actions from me while using my family name for PR damage control. The email, sent to nearly 30 relatives, read, "Our daughter Melanie stands at the precipice of extraordinary success with her wellness platform that will help thousands. As family, we have always supported her. Unfortunately, Evie has chosen this crucial moment to create division over a simple financial arrangement intended to secure Melanie's funding. We ask for your understanding and prayers." I screenshotted the entire thing, saved it, and returned to my quarterly data analysis as if I'd just filed a routine compliance report. The lawyer I consulted the next day, Alex Miller, a colleague's brother who specialized in financial fraud, reviewed my organized documentation with palpable surprise. He said, "Most clients come in emotional and disorganized. You've done half my job already. This is professional." "Data analysis is what I do," I replied, feeling a small, genuine smile touch my face for the first time in days. "The recording of your father's statement, the threat about preventing you from reporting a crime, that's particularly valuable," Alex noted, tapping the screen. "Have you considered a restraining order?" "Not yet," I admitted, "but I'm keeping my options open." 3 days later, as I was walking to my car after work, a familiar Ford F-150 pulled sharply into the parking lot. My parents. I felt the familiar hammer pounding in my chest, but the calm held. I kept walking, keys clutched between my fingers, though I never thought I'd need that self-defense trick against my own parents. They intercepted me before I reached my sedan. Mom, Carol, looked smaller. her normally perfect hair slightly disheveled. Dad, Richard, loomed, his jaws set in the old disciplinary expression. "We need to talk," he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "This mess on social media, you need to control it." "I haven't posted anything," I stated, my voice steady. Mom stepped forward, twisting her purse strap. "Melanie is just scared, honey. You need to go online and post that this is all a family misunderstanding. Tell everyone you support your sister." The audacity of the request was stunning. "You're asking me to lie for her after she publicly called me a bitter, jealous sister?" "It's to protect the family," Mom pleaded, reaching for my arm. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "I will not lie to cover up a felony." The words came out clear and firm, belonging to someone stronger than the old Evie. Dad stepped closer, his bulk blocking the setting sun. "If you don't stop this investigation and fix the public damage, you are no longer our daughter." The threat hung heavy between us. I glanced up at the security camera mounted high above the employee entrance, the red light blinking its steady documentation. "I stopped being your daughter the moment you decided to give Melanie everything while expecting me to pay for the privilege," I said, stepping around them to unlock my car. "Good night." That night, the quiet support began trickling in, counterpoints to the familial onslaught. Sarah texted, "My spare room is yours if you need space. Seriously." My college roommate replied to an old email, "Denver position still open. HR asked about you again." A law school friend offered, "Happy to review documents pro bono. Send them over." The internal isolation was cracking, letting in the light of true support. The bank's formal inquiry arrived by certified mail 3 days later, a request from the HELOC lender for a written statement regarding the potentially fraudulent signatures. I drafted my response that night, attaching copies of the HELOC docs, the credit report, and the signature comparisons. My hand hovered over the send button for only a moment before clicking. 48 hours later, the bank's fraud department opened an official investigation. Dad's panicked call came at midnight, his voice slurring slightly. "What have you done? They're talking about a formal inquiry. Do you know what this means?" I didn't answer, just documented the time and content of the call. Melanie showed up at my apartment the next evening, uninvited. Her eyes were genuinely red this time. The cosmetic smudging was gone. "Please, Evie, I will lose everything if this goes through." I looked at my sister, seeing past the entitlement, for a moment, to the fear. "You chose this when you forged their signatures," I said quietly, and closed the door. The next morning, I filed a formal police report about the forgery, sending certified copies of all evidence to the authorities. I emailed my landlord about not renewing my lease. I called Denver and scheduled the preliminary interview. My financial planner helped me separate all remaining family accounts, his eyes wide at the extent of the entanglement. It's like financial quicksand. One wrong step and you'd never get free. I know. That's why I'm leaving Chicago behind. That night, the group text arrived as I was packing the first box of books. Annual Neighborhood Barbecue, this Saturday, hosted by Richard and Carol Hayes, 4 p.m. I stared at the message. Neighbors were already responding. "Can't wait, we'll bring the potato salad." My finger hovered over accept. The weight of 30 decades of history pressed on me. One last family appearance. "I'm bringing receipts," I whispered to my empty apartment, hitting accept. I parked my car 3 houses down from my parents' home, needing those few extra steps to compose myself before facing the crowd. The annual neighborhood barbecue, a tradition stretching back to my childhood, felt less like a party and more like a tactical operation today. I smoothed the charcoal pencil skirt and adjusted my cream blouse, professional armor for the confrontation ahead. My phone buzzed. Sarah texted, "You sure about this? Call me the second you leave." I replied simply, "No turning back now." The evidence folder sat open on my phone. Every transaction, every forged signature, every lie ready to be accessed. I didn't need to speak much. The data would speak for itself. Laughter and voices drifted across the perfectly manicured lawns as I approached the Hayes house. Mrs. Jenkins, who had brought me cookies when I got my first promotion, waved from near the drink table. The Millers, whose lawn Dad and I used to help mow, chatted with the new family from 2 blocks over. Then I saw them, huddled near the massive grill. Dad, Richard, flipping burgers with forced enthusiasm, Mom, Carol, arranging the potato salad, and Melanie gesturing animatedly to a group of friends and neighbors, soaking up the attention. For a fleeting moment, they looked like the ideal suburban family. That illusion almost hurt. Dad noticed me first. His spatula froze mid-flip, leaving a burger to sizzle forgotten on the grate. "Evie," he managed, his voice tightening. Mom's head snapped up, her eyes locked onto mine, a mix of fear and warning. "Evie, dear," Mrs. Jenkins called, pulling me into a hug. "We've missed you. How's work?" "Busy, but good," I answered, making sure my voice was level and audible. "I heard you might be moving," Mrs. Jenkins continued, her tone conversational. "I'm seriously considering a senior architect position in Denver," I announced, loud enough to carry. Melanie broke away from her audience, whispered something urgent to her friend Liam, and then wove through the crowd toward Mom and Dad. I watched them confer, heads bent in a tight, conspiratorial triangle, planning the defense, always planning. I accepted a glass of iced tea from Mr. Miller and positioned myself strategically near the center of the mingling area, close to neighbors who had known me since grade school, people who understood nuance better than the distant relatives on social media. "Richard," boomed Mr. Peterson, Dad's former supplier, slapping him on the back. "Tell everyone about Melanie's big news. That tech platform sounds amazing." Dad took a deep breath, pulling his showman smile into place. "Our entrepreneur daughter has some major developments. Melanie, why don't you share?" Melanie stepped forward, radiating polished charm. "My SoulSync platform is gaining serious traction. We're finalizing talks with venture capitalists who see the potential. It's all happening so fast." The same script, the same promise of future millions that supposedly justified the $85,000 theft. Mom materialized beside Mrs. Keller, who was asking about the for sale sign she'd recently noticed. "You know how crazy the market is, Dorothy. We've been thinking of downsizing for years." I watched as my family worked the room. Uncle Tom and Aunt Martha actively creating a buffer between me and anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions. Liam, Melanie's boyfriend, approached me with rehearsed casualness. "Evie," he said loudly, ensuring several heads turned, "I just wanted to thank you for always supporting Melanie. Family backing is everything for entrepreneurs." Several neighbors nodded appreciatively at this public affirmation of my supposed generosity. The narrative was cemented. I was the established older sister, slightly jealous, but ultimately supportive. "How thoughtful of you to say so," I replied, my smile tight. Mrs. Jenkins touched my arm again. "Your sister mentioned you were having a hard time with them selling the family home. Change is difficult, dear." "Actually," I said, my voice pleasant but clear, "I'm excited about new beginnings. For everyone." For the next hour, I maintained the composure of a seasoned negotiator, sidestepping landmines and correcting gentle misconceptions. "No, I haven't been struggling professionally. Yes, the Denver opportunity is a substantial raise. No, Melanie and I simply have different priorities." Dad watched me like a hawk, his movements growing increasingly agitated. "Family loyalty is everything in the Hayes household." His voice boomed across the yard, a desperate, loud statement of principle. As the sun began to descend, Dad's laughter grew louder, more forced. Melanie's smile faltered when she thought no one was looking. Mom's shoulders were rigid with tension. I was filling my plate at the dessert table when Dad finally made his direct move, positioning his considerable bulk between me and the other guests. "You're embarrassing the family," he hissed, his voice low and intense. I carefully set down my plate, meeting his eyes. "Am I embarrassing you, Dad?" A muscle jumped in his jaw. Conversations nearby paused, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Or, I continued, my voice steady, professional, and clear enough to carry easily to the cluster of people nearest the grill. Or did Melanie embarrass you when she forged your signatures on an $85,000 fraudulent mortgage loan? The words landed like a physical blow. A sudden, terrible silence fell over the yard. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A plastic fork clattered to the patio. Dad's face instantly drained of color. Mom froze by the cooler, a pitcher of iced tea suspended in mid-pour. Melanie's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. Evie, Dad recovered quickly, his voice strained and attempting forced casualness. This is a family misunderstanding. This is not the place for... Richard, Mr. Jacobson, our neighbor, and a commercial lending officer at the local bank, stepped forward, his brow deeply furrowed. Is that true? Forged signatures? Dad's eyes darted frantically. George, this is complicated. A simple misunderstanding that $85,000 in fraud isn't simple or a misunderstanding. Mr. Jacobson cut him off, the banker overriding the neighbor. It's a felony. Mom set down the pitcher, shaking violently. We should discuss this privately, she pleaded. But the damage was irreversible. The carefully constructed narrative had collapsed. Neighbors exchanged horrified glances. Phones instantly appeared in hands. The whispers started. I didn't stay to watch the implosion. I had placed the truth directly into the light. That was the extent of my mission. As I walked to my car, my phone began vibrating with a new kind of notification. Mrs. Jenkins. Evie, is this why they're really selling the house? Mr. Miller. We always thought something seemed off. Mr. Jacobson. Please call me Monday morning. We need to discuss this officially. My finger hovered over the screen. I could elaborate, fan the flames, guarantee the complete destruction of their local standing. Instead, I sent a single, clinical text to all contacts. This is now a legal matter. I can't discuss it further. 7 years of financial support, 7 years of sacrifice, 7 years of being the family safety net. 3 minutes to tell the truth. As I drove away, I caught a final glimpse in the rearview mirror. Dad gesturing wildly, Mom covering her face, Melanie running toward the house. The picture-perfect family portrait was shattered beyond repair. Not by me, but by the weight of their own dishonesty. The emotional weight that lifted from my shoulders felt almost physical, a sudden, sharp relief. The following Monday, I found myself sitting on Aunt Martha's floral couch, surrounded by the extended family who had convened what I could only describe as an intervention. The living room was heavy with the stench of forced concern and cheap tissues. Evie, honey, we're all here because we love you and your parents. Family business should stay private. I almost laughed. Where was this concern when Melanie was savaging my reputation on social media? Dad's lawyer, a balding man with expensive cufflinks, slid a document across the coffee table. We've prepared a simple family settlement. You temporarily cover the $85,000 HELOC. Temporarily? I interrupted. The lawyer nodded, oblivious. Once Melanie's VC funding comes through, she'll repay every penny. Mom Carol reached for my hand. I pulled it away. The bank is threatening foreclosure, Evie. The house could be gone in 60 days. This is your childhood home. Melanie, tears welling up on cue, murmured, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. No apology for the forgery, just for the consequences. Liam, Melanie's boyfriend, leaned in with the final, insidious accusation. Honestly, Evie, some people might think you're just jealous of your sister's success. The room fell silent, waiting for my inevitable surrender. I reached for my phone instead. The Denver position was still open, I announced, my voice steady, professional, and clear. I accepted it already. $40,000 raise, effective immediately. Mom gasped. Dad's face darkened. I've signed a lease on an apartment near downtown, and I've reserved a U-Haul truck for next weekend. One way. I stood up, adjusting my purse strap. I've sent an email declining your settlement. Check your inboxes. Evie, think about what you're doing. Mom pleaded. I have thought about it, I replied, looking around at the faces that had always expected me to pay the price. The truth matters more than comfortable lies. I walked out, leaving the stunned silence behind me. I finalized the anonymous dossier of evidence for the bank's lead investigator and the formal statement for the police. 3 days later, the house of cards collapsed. The HELOC fraud triggered an automatic mortgage default. The pending house sale fell through. Dad and Mom had no choice but to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Melanie was sued by the bank independently. Her promising platform turned out to have exactly 0 investors. 7 years of financial manipulation exposed and neutralized in 7 days. That Saturday, I closed the back of the U-Haul. My phone was silent. They'd finally accepted I was beyond their reach. The GPS glowed blue. Proceed to Denver, Colorado. I accelerated onto the interstate. With every mile marker, the distance grew between the person I was and the person I was becoming. The weight of being the family safety net was gone. I was finally free.